A lone figure stands on the African savanna, spear in hand, eyes fixed on a distant herd. This is not a scene from a nature documentary. It's a glimpse into the lives of our ancestors. For millions of years, hunting and gathering were not just activities. They were the very foundation of human existence. The hunter's success depended on knowledge passed down through generations, which plants were edible, how to track animals, and when to move camp. This deep understanding of the environment was a form of science, tested and refined over countless lifetimes. Gathering was equally vital. Women and children collected berries, nuts, and roots, providing a steady food supply when hunting was lean. This division of labor was not about hierarchy but efficiency. Everyone contributed to the group's survival. This lifestyle shaped our bodies and minds. The need to cooperate, share information, and plan ahead drove the evolution of larger brains and complex language. In many ways, we are still hunter-gatherers living in a modern world. They were the engine of human evolution. But here's the twist. The real prize wasn't the meat. It was the thinking that came with the chase. Before there were hunters, there were toolmakers. The earliest stone tools, like those from Olduvai Gorge, date back 2 years ago. These were simple tools, just sharp flakes knocked off a core stone. But they represent a cognitive leap, the ability to see a rock not as a rock, but as a potential knife. That mental transformation, that abstract thinking, is what set our ancestors apart. This cognitive leap didn't happen overnight. It took hundreds of thousands of years of trial and error. Each generation passed down not just tools, but the knowledge of how to make them. This was the birth of culture, the first curriculum. And with better tools came better hunting. Spears with sharpened stone tips allowed early humans to take down large game from a safer distance. This wasn't just a technological advance, it was a strategic one. It required planning, coordination, and communication. These simple choppers and flakes allowed early hominins to butcher carcasses and crack bones for marrow. But the real breakthrough came with the Acheulean hand axe, a teardrop-shaped tool that required planning and symmetry. Making one demanded a mental template, a skill that may have shaped the evolution of the human brain itself. The hand axe was not just a tool, it was a symbol of cognitive evolution. For over 1 million years, hominins across Africa, Europe, and Asia crafted these symmetrical stones with remarkable consistency. The same shape appears in sites separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of millennia, suggesting a shared mental template passed down through. But the hand axe was not the only innovation. Around 400,000 years ago, hominins began using the Levallois technique, a sophisticated method where a stone core was carefully prepared so that a single blow could produce a sharp, predetermined flake. This was like having a toolkit within a stone, ready. The Levallois technique represents a leap in planning and foresight. The toolmaker had to visualize the final product before starting, shaping the core through a series of precise strikes. This ability to think several steps ahead is a hallmark of modern human cognition, and it emerged long before our own species appeared. The brain's ability to sequence actions. This was the first step in a cognitive revolution where hands and minds co-evolved. While hunting gets the glory, gathering provided the bulk of calories, up to 70% in some environments. Early humans were expert botanists, knowing which safe to eat and which were poisonous. This knowledge was passed down through generations, forming the first curricula. The act of gathering also required fine motor skills and memory, where the best patches were when they ripened. It was a constant, low-stakes problem-solving exercise that kept the brain. But the real game-changer was cooking. When early humans learned to control fire, they unlocked a nutritional revolution. Cooking breaks down tough fibers and starches, making food easier to digest and more energy efficient. This meant that less energy was spent on digestion, and more energy was available for. This energy surplus allowed the brain to grow larger and more complex. Cooking also reduced toxins in many plants, expanding the menu. And because cooked food is softer, it required less chewing, leading to changes in jaw and tooth structure over time. Fire became the first external organ, a tool that processed food before the body had pain, reduced fever, or stopped diarrhea. These early healers passed down their knowledge orally, generation after generation. The first medicines were not pills or injections, but leaves, roots, and bark chewed or brewed into teas. But gathering had a limit. As populations grew, wild food sources became unreliable. A group could only carry so much, and a territory could only support so many mouths. The solution would change everything. Instead of searching for food, humans learned to produce it. The agricultural revolution began around 10,000 BCE in the Fertile Crescent. Here, wild wheat and barley grew naturally. Someone noticed that seeds dropped on disturbed soil sprouted the next season. This simple observation sparked a farming meant staying in one place. Villages grew into towns. Surplus food allowed some people to specialize: potters, weavers, toolmakers, and eventually priests and kings. The first civilizations were built on the foundation of a single idea, planting a. This intimate relationship with the plant world laid the foundation for medicine and agriculture. Hunting large game was a high-risk, high-reward endeavor. Early humans used several strategies. Persistence hunting, running prey to exhaustion over hours, exploited our unique ability to cool through sweating. Ambush. Hunting required knowledge of animal behavior and terrain. Later, projectiles like spears and atlatls allowed hunting from a distance, reducing risk. The invention of the bow and arrow around 64,000 years ago was a game changer, enabling precise, long-range kills. But hunting wasn't just about food. It also provided materials for tools, clothing, and shelter. It demanded cooperation, communication, and planning, skills that may have driven the evolution of language and social bonds. Archaeological evidence reveals that early humans lived in bands of 25-50 individuals. These groups were highly cooperative, sharing food and childcare. The division of labor was often men hunted large game while women gathered plants and cared for children. But this was not a rigid rule. Everyone contributed according to ability and need. Such cooperation created a safety net. If a hunter was injured, others shared their catch. If a woman fell ill, others cared for her children. This mutual support extended beyond the immediate group. Evidence of long-distance trade networks shows that early humans exchanged goods like obsidian and seashells over hundreds of miles. These exchanges required trust and communication between different bands, laying the groundwork for larger social networks. These social bonds were not just practical, they were emotional. Burials from the Paleolithic period show that early humans cared for their dead, sometimes placing flowers or personal objects in graves. This suggests a sense of loss, memory, and perhaps belief in an afterlife. Cooperation, then, was not only a survival strategy. While men typically hunted large game, women and children gathered and hunted small animals. This cooperation required sophisticated social skills, reading intentions, building trust, and punishing cheaters. The social brain hypothesis suggests that the demands of group living drove the expansion of the neocortex. In other words, our ancestors didn't just get smarter to make tools, they got smarter to understand each other. This social intelligence became the foundation for language, culture, and eventually civilization itself. Words, our big brains evolved not just to solve ecological problems, but to navigate complex social networks. Evidence from burial sites shows that hunter-gatherers cared for the injured and elderly, indicating deep social bonds. Around 12,000 years ago, something changed. The climate stabilized after the last ice age, and the world became warmer and wetter. This climate shift allowed plants and animals to flourish, creating new opportunities for human societies. In some regions, people began to settle down, building permanent villages and experimenting with the first forms of agriculture, which had sustained humans for hundreds of thousands of years, was gradually abandoned. But why would anyone trade the freedom of the hunt for the monotony of farming? The answer lies in the end of the last ice age. As the climate warmed, wild cereals grew more abundant in the Fertile Crescent. Hunter-gatherers began to stay longer at seasonal camps, eventually settling year-round. These early settlements became laboratories of domestication. People noticed that planting seeds from the best plants yielded better crops. Over generations, wild wheat evolved into domesticated varieties with larger grain. Similarly, wild goats and sheep were drawn to human settlements for food and protection. Over time, humans selectively bred the most docile animals, creating herds that depended on people for survival. Had sustained humans for 99% of our history was gradually replaced. Yet the cognitive and social skills honed over millennia didn't disappear. They became the foundation of civilization. But here's the twist. We never fully left that lifestyle behind. Our brains are hunter-gatherer brain, alert, pattern-seeking, and deeply social. We still crave the small group dynamics of our ancestors. Our modern world is a thin layer over an ancient mind. Consider our love for gossip. It's not trivial, it's a survival tool. In a tribe, knowing who to trust and who to avoid was critical. Gossip helped us navigate social networks without direct confrontation. Today, gossip has evolved into celebrity news and social media. The same ancient instinct now plays out on a global stage. Our brains can't tell the difference between a tribal rumor and a viral tweet. Our craving for fatty and sweet foods is a direct relic of the savannah. Back then, such calories were rare and precious, so our brains evolved to reward us when we found them. Today, that ancient reward system clashes with a world of endless sugar and process. Our social instincts for gossip and cooperation are echoes of the band. In a small group of hunter-gatherers, knowing who to trust and who to avoid was a matter of survival. Gossip was a tool for sharing information about others, and cooperation allowed us to hunt large game and defend. Our tendency to walk or run for pleasure may be a relic of persistence hunting. Before bows and arrows, our ancestors ran down prey over long distances in the heat of the day, using their superior cooling system to exhaust faster animals. That same endurance now finds an outlet in marathons and morning jogs. These ancient drives, for fat, for gossip, for endurance, are deeply embedded in our biology. They shaped us on the savannah, but they now operate in a world of supermarkets, social media, and treadmills. Understanding this mismatch is the first step to making sense of our modern behavior. Modern hunter-gatherer societies, like the Hadza of Tanzania, offer a living window into our past. Their diets, social structures, and even their leisure time challenge our assumptions about progress. Hunting and gathering were not a primitive stage we left behind. They were the crucible in which our minds, bodies, and societies were forged over hundreds of thousands of years. The Hadza diet consists of wild game, tubers, berries, and honey. They have no agriculture, no stored food, and no permanent homes, yet they are remarkably healthy and strong. Their social structure is egalitarian. No one holds authority over others. Decisions are made by consensus, and sharing is a fundamental rule. This was likely the norm for most of human history. Our ancestors didn't just survive, they thrived by working together. In small bands, they hunted, gathered, and shared knowledge. This cooperation was the foundation of human society. They learned which plants were safe to eat and which animals could be hunted. This knowledge was passed down through generations, becoming the first science. Tools were the key. Sharpened stones, wooden spears, and later bows and arrows gave them an edge. Each innovation made life a little easier. So the next time you walk through a grocery store, remember, your ancestors walked through the savannah and their choices echo in every aisle.